much. Thank you. It's a tune called By George.
By George. Oh, I was gonna see play. Yeah, there we go. Todd Dickow, Murray Lowe, Aaron, Jermaine, and John. And ladies and gentlemen, this is Mike Krosnick. Is he was the drummer on that cut. This is his band, Charged Particles. Can I say that's your band?
It's our band, sure.
So Jon Krosnick. So yeah, we haven't talked yet, so we're really going to get into the details here. Right?
Start at the beginning.
Start at the beginning. So in reading your bio, you it was a pretty full bio. I mean, your let's say your commitment to music was started early and remained all through because you also you have another career too, right?
I have at least another life. Yes, maybe two. Depends on how you count.
What are your other lives?
Well, I'm a professor at Stanford, and so I teach and do research there. But I'm also a consultant and an expert witness and litigation and other ways. So yeah, so kind of three things going on.
It's a lot, you know.
It is. And
I
I
mean,
actually sleep at night. I don't know how it all works, but somehow it does.
yeah, it's really interesting. Um, so, and you actually started, well, you're from the Bay Area, is that right?
Originally from near Philadelphia.
Okay.
Yeah, growing up in a very, very musical household. So, and made my way to California slowly. I've only been in the San Francisco area for 20 years now.
Oh, okay.
So Philadelphia growing up, Boston College, Ann Arbor, Michigan for grad school, teaching at Ohio State for 18 years, and then 20 years at Stanford.
Okay. All right. Yep. That's traveling a bit. Um, and so, and it seemed like you started as a piano player. Is
That
that
is
true?
true. That was for a minute, like so many of us as little kids. My
Yeah.
mother was a serious opera singer,
Oh,
and until she gave up singing in order to be a mother. And opera and music were very prominent in my household. So I played piano for a little while. My sister played piano, and we went to Interlochen for 10 summers in northern Michigan. That was really my musical training. I don't know if you know that Interlochen has had, maybe still has, a program that they call talent exploration, where little tiny kids spend one day playing each instrument in the orchestra.
I heard about
And
that. Yeah.
yeah, and so I was working my way through and finally got to the percussion section, and I thought, okay, that's me. So that's how I ended up where I am.
That's cute. How old were you?
Well, I think I was probably like 9 at that point when that transition from piano to percussion happened.
Yeah. I think that's a great, I think that's a great way. I've heard that from other people and other institutions. I think it's great, you know?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. You're discovering the instrument that's inside you.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, so these days, I know tonight you have a gig. And are you being a professor these days too, right
Yeah,
now?
although I'm on sabbatical from Stanford this year, so I have more time to
Oh,
talk to you during the day than I might otherwise. But
yeah.
I'm doing about 170 gigs a year with Charged Particles and another 40 or so with the Lunar Octet, which is my other group, the Latin jazz group that's based in Michigan. And so, yeah, lots of travel. And Charged Particles has not only done, I think, all but about 10 states in the US so far, but we've done Canada and England and Sweden and Switzerland and Germany and Italy and Indonesia and Abu Dhabi, and so we get around traveling wise too.
Okay, don't tell me you set up the gigs.
I do set up the gigs.
I had a feeling, but you know, it's hard to imagine, all of that stuff on your plate. Yeah.
Yeah, we're not doing the get smart routine well. So you're supposed to say, "Don't tell me you set up the gigs," and then I say, "I set up the gigs," and then you say, "I told you not to tell me that."
Oh, sorry. I fell out of my part.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, you
Yeah.
you were probably little boys were more obsessed with get smart than little girls probably is my guess.
Well, yeah. I touched on it, but are you talking about the old Get Smart or the newer
Yeah,
one?
the original, the one that
Yeah,
was
I
actually
did
fun.
actually watch that, believe it or not, but it was, yeah, maybe not obsessively.
Yes, I was obsessed. Yeah.
Yeah, I was just at the Jazz Congress in New York, and there was this one seminar. I guess you call it a seminar. It's not really a seminar. Um, it was, let's see, it was, okay, hold on. My brain has to kind of gather this information. It was, oh my gosh, maybe names aren't coming today. Um,
Well, I saw some of it online, so give me a hint, and maybe I was there too.
well, three women speaking.
Okay.
Famous singer Dee Dee Bridgewater
Oh, Dee Dee Bridgewater, amazing. Yeah.
and famous pianist
Renee
Black.
Rasmus, I can't. Oh no.
Uh,
Would that
she's
have been?
famous.
Yeah.
She's like a Terry Lynn Carrington, but oh, Patrice
Mhm.
Trushen.
Oh yes, yeah, yeah. She's kind of come out of the shadows, hasn't she?
Yeah, yeah. And a young woman sax player whose name I really don't I I hadn't heard it before, and so
Is
it's
it
not.
was it Lakeisha Benjamin?
Yes, it was.
Yeah.
So the three of them were speaking together, just
Hmm.
about everything. It was a really interesting conversation, and but Lakeisha, she's young, and she's doing absolutely everything, tour managing everything herself, and not only me went, oh my God, Dee Dee and Patrice were like, wow. And but she's at that age and she's fine with it. And although I think she did kind of say that she was kind of looking forward to maybe delegating, you know. But
Yeah.
it's an awful lot. I mean, I do a lot in my own area, but I mean, you have three careers and not just like, you're making keys at the local key store, you're like, they're like really thick. So, you do sleep, right?
Yes, occasionally. But I actually, Lakeisha and I have a little link to each other
Oh,
because one of her mentors, and maybe I don't know whether she's officially her manager, is a woman I'm sure you know, Gail Boyd,
yeah.
and Gail has been a bit of a mentor for us too.
Oh,
And so I was talking to Gail before Lakeisha burst on the scene, and then just watched Lakeisha's success and congratulated Gail because she was an important support and guide in all that process.
wow. Yeah, that's fantastic. I really like Gail. I've done her show and I've had her on my show. Yeah, she's cool. And she's connected with a lot of good people, kind of the real thing.
Yeah, yeah, and great perspective on the industry.
Yeah, and been in it a long time.
Mhm.
Um, well, let's see. Um, I'm not sure what to ask you yet because there's so much. I mean, okay, so that's charged particles. Let's focus on charged particles.
Okay.
How did that start and when?
Well, it started actually when I was a young professor at Ohio State, moved to Columbus, and was interested in getting into the local jazz scene. And when you go to a new town and you literally know nobody. I mean, I knew all the university people who I was going to work with, but in the music scene, I didn't know. And so, you can kind of go to gigs and listen to people, but everybody knows everybody else, and you're on the outside, and not necessarily connections that open up easily. And you could go to jam sessions and play, but that wasn't, there weren't a lot of those opportunities in Columbus. And so at one point, I took a poster of Buddy Rich to a framing store just to get the poster framed. And the guy who was there said, "Oh, what a great picture! Are you a drummer?" And I said, "Yeah, I am." And he said, "Well, I know a band that's looking for a drummer. Maybe you'd like to talk to those guys." And so, long story short, I ended up joining that group. It was called State of Mind, and it was kind of playing, funky fusiony stuff. And after a little while in that group, which was perfectly enjoyable, the pianist and I kind of looked at each other and thought maybe we should do something a little bit more ambitious, because he actually was an undergrad at Ohio State in the music school, and as you know, that's a great music program in jazz. And his name was Caleb Hutzler, a really talented guy who was inspired by very notey players like Alan Holdsworth and Chick Corea. And he said, I got this friend who's a bass player, Mike Rack, who's in the program here. Let me just play a little bit, see what it feels like. So it turns out that Caleb lived, after this framing store connection, Caleb lived 3 houses away from me, and Mike lived about 45 seconds away from me. So rehearsing was really easy. And Columbus is, 1.5 million people. It's a big city, but those guys were just right there. So we get within, I think we started in 1992, and by 1994, I think we did 210 gigs that year. We were doing, Ohio was just a great place to play. And we were doing a mix of original music and of some, kind of Chick Corea, Yellow Jackets kind of stuff. And we were doing often 5 gigs in a weekend. We'd do Friday night, Saturday afternoon, Saturday night, Sunday afternoon, Sunday night, festivals all over the place. We were, in a van driving a lot, but it felt great, and that was the beginning.
Wow. And then it just continued solidly.
Well, yeah, with ups and downs. So we eventually made a record, and to my surprise, to all of our surprise, it got better than I thought deserved reviews, and that opened doors to new performances. And then we ended up doing a tour to Sweden not too long after that, and went down to Arkansas to do some playing. And so we thought, okay, well, people seem not to hate this music, and then put out another record, and that record got a lot of attention and opened up more opportunities. And then, unfortunately for the band, Stanford called and said, "Would you like to move to California?" And so I moved, and essentially brought the band name with me. And then I had to kind of reinvent from the ground up in California, because I had to find players there. And it was a little bit of the same coincidence that I heard a guy at a gig who sounded like Herbie, and I thought, oh, wait, who the heck is that? And he's in the middle of his set, and my wife and I are going by, and she doesn't want to wait 45 minutes for them to finish. And so I asked the people at the bar who was that, and they said, "Oh, I don't know what his name is." But eventually later it turned out to be Steve Carter, who, I don't know if you know Steve. He's just a great player on this scene. And then he said, "The guy you need is teaching at Stanford with you," which I didn't know, and that was Murray Lowe. And so Murray became the pianist, and Murray said, "Well, the right bass player is Aaron Germain." And so then kind of the same thing of rehearsing up the material, but capitalizing on the name of the group and the track record that we had created. And, I keep thinking this is going to end at some point, but it keeps just escalating up. And as you saw on the website, we've had some really nice luck with guest partnerships, and that has really put us in the spotlight lately.
It's amazing. Like I said, there's so much. I'm just gonna do this for a second. I'm gonna share the website. Of course, I have to get back to where the videos are at some point, but still, this website, your website is much more full than mine was, and my web person kept saying, "Too much information."
Yes, that's my web person says that too.
So, there's home, and then, got some great quotes, lots of great quotes. Live at the Baked Potato. Wow. Okay. and then, biography of the band, and that's a whole. Hey, here you are. Okay. Biographies of the players. Yeah. Okay. And I saw Chick there. Yep, that's
Yeah.
Chick. Yep. And
Yeah, that's me and Chick right there playing together.
yeah, oh right. I mean, this actually, I was looking at that, playing together. But
Yeah.
yeah, there's you and Chick and there too. I used that picture because I thought it was, cool to show people, hey, right away. So
Yeah.
Dr. Craig Walker is here. He says hi.
Okay. Hi to Dr. Craig Walker.
Yeah, and Roland is here. Um, so what's this playing situation with Chick? What was that?
Well, he did a kind of about face, maybe about 10 years before he passed away, when he decided that for a change, he wanted to actually teach and give back to students in a way that he hadn't really during his career. He was so busy playing and composing and traveling and recording that teaching hadn't been a priority. And so what he decided to do was to hold a workshop in the Berkshires by Tanglewood in Western Massachusetts for a week.
Uh,
And there's actually a pretty dramatic story in it that it was run by an organization that you might remember called Guitar Workshop. And Guitar Workshop had been running dozens of little 1 week camps around the country for guitar players for many years. And in more recent years, they decided they wanted to do some superstar events. So they had a week with Pat Metheny at one point, and they did they had 50 guitar players came to that thing, and by the end of that week, they had all learned a piece that Pat had written for them, and they recorded it. So it was kind of life-changing experience for those guitar players, and they decided to do it with Chick, and so about a month before everybody was going to descend on Lenox, Massachusetts for a week, we got a note saying from Guitar Workshop saying, "Sorry to tell you, we have gone bankrupt and we're going out of business. And you've paid some money to participate in this thing, and we're not giving it back to you. And so don't bother contacting
oh,
us because
oh,
you won't find us. And have a nice life." Um,
oh my God.
and so that was a little shocking and not horrible, but not pleasant. And shortly thereafter, we all got a note from Chick personally saying, "Hey, I know you got this announcement that the workshop's canceled, but maybe not. So don't cancel your plane tickets yet. Maybe we'll hold it." And make a
Oh,
long story short, he was so committed to giving this teaching thing a try. Because he had never done it before. He was kind of all geared up to bring a film crew and to not only do really wonderful, 7 days of playing and lecturing and answering questions and having us play with him and John Patitucci and Antonio Sanchez, but also to kind of interview people and have some film documentary that he could then use to market more teaching. And so he just decided, at his own expense, he was going to go through with this thing. And so it ended up happening. And so, he was, and I don't know how much time you've spent with him, but before that week, he was one of the most amazing mortals to walk the planet in my mind. And then at the end of the week, he was just also one of the nicest guys on the planet. Just so humble, so human,
yeah.
and so real. And I'll tell you one of the most powerful stories of it involved when I was in the men's room, and I saw him. One of the other participants was blind, and when Chick walked in, he basically dedicated himself to helping this guy navigate washing his hands and getting a paper towel and all that kind of stuff. That's what a genuine compassionate person does. And Chick wasn't too big for that, so it was really charming to see. And so that was our week together. And after that, when I saw him at concerts, he would like leave the stage, come up to me in the audience, say hi, chat. It was a really nice friendship that developed as a result.
Yeah, I did know him actually, and I knew his mother too, and his son and his daughter, and his wife. Anyway, he was a really, I totally agree. Totally cool guy. I mean, very real, very kind, um, and such a genius, right? A genius musician and full of great experience. I was at what show was that? That was like an IAJE when he won some kind of really big award, and he was so lovely when he accepted the award. He was so real and down to earth and, you know, said, I forget exactly what he said, but it was kind of like, if you or I were to have an award given to us, what we would say, just very real. He was a cool guy. I think the last time I saw him was after that last record. I think it was a last record he did. It was more Spanish based or Latin based, and they
Mhm.
made a movie of it,
Mhm.
and it was at the Grammy Museum, and he was there for Q&A, and that was a great. It was a great movie, and you know, that was really fun. It was really a good time to see him. It's just such a beloved, um, such a beloved and revered human, right?
Yeah. 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 Who spoke through his music? That it just there. I remember, Joe Zawinul's backwards compliment was that Chick sounded like he was playing a typewriter. But the fact was that typewriter connected to many people's hearts.
Yes. I'm just gonna take still continue to look. You mentioned that, charged particles has played at a shitload of places, and
Yeah.
yeah, and you have a number of things lined up.
Hmm.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Looks good. Wow.
And I'm not
Damn.
sure I'm not sure the most exciting booking of last week is on there. We're doing a tour this summer with Randy Brecker.
Oh, and that was last week?
Well, it was confirmed last week, so it's coming up in
Oh,
late July, early August. I don't know if it's on there.
I see. Do you have someone helping with your website?
Well, you're looking at them.
Okay. Well, here's the Bach Dynamite.
Yeah,
Yeah. Oh, and the Portola.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And we're doing 2 nights at Demetrio's in Seattle, and we're doing May House, which is the new jazz club in Palo Alto, and we're doing Keys Jazz Bistro, which is new-ish club that's really thriving in San Francisco. And we've been talking about a possibility of coming to San Diego. San Diego is a mystery, hard to figure out. There have sometimes been venues of some significance, and they do big concerts in theaters, but there hasn't really been a thriving jazz club that would take a gig like this. So we're seeing what we can do to maybe set something up there.
I see. Yeah. I've never been to Dizzy's, but I don't even know if it's still open.
It is still open, but it's the kind of thing where, the first little bit of revenue that comes in for the evening goes to the house, and then after that, it's a door gig basically. So
I,
you can't bring Randy Brecker to a door gig.
yeah. Then, of course, lots of videos and recordings, and recognition. So press, photos, photos. Yep, lots
Just
of
to make it
photos.
easy, so when I don't know why I think that's looking weird on your computer compared to mine, but if you actually go to any of those, follow the link. So in other words, hover over photos and then click another link. It'll look better, I think.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like this. Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah, yeah, yeah. It's your good press photos, man. Yeah,
Those are the high res ones for the when the presenters are asking for something high res. I say go there.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And then CDs, which is a lot. You did live at the Baked Potato, um, which is, in my neighborhood. That's why I'm mentioning that.
Ah. Hmm.
And
Yeah, that was the breakthrough. That if you click on that, you'll see how many best of 2021 lists it got on. I mean, we thought it would get on zero. It didn't even occur to us that it would be on a best of anything list, and it ended up being named by quite a
Wow,
few.
cool. That's great. Very nice. Yeah. Let's see. And history, got your history here. Cute.
Oh,
And
you know
this,
what? Go up one picture there. That's heartbreaking right there. That's the Kennedy Center, which is of course falling apart right now.
I don't know about that.
Oh, so the Kennedy Center is in Washington, D.C.,
Yeah.
and it has been a major center for performing arts. They have multiple theaters there. They have a huge one for symphonies and operas, and then smaller rooms for other events. And they created a stage maybe in 2020 or earlier called the Millennial Stage, which is kind of out in the lobby, which is gigantic.
Yeah.
And that it was a way to feature talent from around the US that wasn't particularly known yet.
Yeah.
And so that's us a long time ago. Caleb Hutzer, who I mentioned on the left side, the keyboardist, Mike Rack on the right side, the bassist, at the Kennedy Center. And so President Trump just announced that he was basically firing pretty much all of the board of trustees of the Kennedy Center and firing the president of the Kennedy Center and appointing himself the head of the Kennedy Center. And so a number of people who didn't get fired resigned. And so it's really been an icon of music and culture in Washington. And I have no idea what's going to happen now, and nobody does, I think. But it is really it's a tragedy.
I didn't know about the Kennedy Center and Trump. And yeah, it's just one more piece of the science fiction movie that we're living in right now. It's just it's hard to fully understand and absorb and feel comfortable with what's going on. And it's yeah, I mean, there's so many things happening. You really don't even know where to put your energies, you know.
Yeah.
And yeah, and yeah, it's really wild. Like I said, that's what I just said. You just really don't know where to put your energies because there's so
Yeah.
many bizarre things happening.
Yeah.
Uh, and
We were lucky
yeah,
though to have that, early on to have that legitimacy by that. And we actually, there's a recording of the band at the Kennedy Center that has been online for 20 years, and it's really nice to
oh
have
well,
been privileged to get selected into that.
yeah, that's beautiful. Um, and then you have a stage plot, which every good website needs, and a contact us and links to other artists. All your favorite artists, it looks like. Are these people you've worked with or just people you like?
People who are kind of in our space, so that there's some sort of musical or personal linkage to everybody. And there are people like Paul McCandless who we've worked with a lot, who are featured in a much larger way elsewhere on the website. But these are people who we feel some connection to, and as you know, just having their links on our site increases the likelihood that other people who like that music will come across our music. So that's part of the strategy.
I see. Yeah, lots of good people. Yeah, and talking about McCandless, Paul McCandless. Um, so let's see, where would I find on your
So go to
site?
performance projects, hover over performance projects, and then the first link will be his, I think.
Cool.
So how
So
have you known Paul over the years?
now I don't know him personally, but of course I've known his music. In Oregon, and just that's probably where I first knew about him.
Hmm.
And perhaps he worked with Nancy King.
He did.
Yeah. And so Nancy King and I have been good friends over the years. So, yeah. So Paul McCandless, he's just kind of an amazing human and musician, right?
Yeah, and he lives up in the Bay Area with us. I have a special debt to him because I owe my marriage to him, I think.
Really?
Well, when my wife and I lived across the hall from each other in college when we first met, and our first date was a trip to southern Vermont from Boston, and 3 hour drive, and we didn't know each other that well yet, and so I thought it was important that the music that I played while we were driving up was going to, set a tone for the relationship. And so Paul had just released, I think it's his first solo record called All the Mornings Bring, which is just a breathtaking set of chamber jazz. Sensitive and beautiful and creative. And I thought, okay, if I could kind of have that be the background music for the drive, that might tell my wife, whose name is also Cathy, that what our relationship might be like. And so she was a kind of rock and roll person. She wasn't particularly knowledgeable about jazz, but that I put the cassette tape into the car as we were driving, and an hour into the trip, luckily she said, "What's that music?" And so, decades later, she will tell you that that was our song, that was our music. And at some point, I discovered that Paul, lived in the Bay Area, not far from us, and he had put out a record in the early '90s called Premonition on Windham Hill Jazz that featured Lyle Mays and Steve Rodby and Mark Walker and Fred Simon playing, much funkier stuff, and we just all loved that music. And so I thought, maybe I just give him a call and see whether he might like to play that stuff with us. And so I was able to get his number, and I called, and he said, okay, we could try it. And I thought, okay, I'll charm him with the story of All the Mornings Bring and my marriage. So I tell him the story, and he says, oh, that was the whole reaction I got out of him. So years later, after we've literally traveled thousands of miles sitting next to each other on planes and in vans and played lots of gigs, I said, Paul, when I told you that story, you didn't really react very much. And he said, oh, I feel badly. I should have reacted more. But the truth is, I've heard that story hundreds of times, and after hundreds of times, it's hard to get worked up. The people say it was the music at my wedding, it was that kind of thing. He is, for people who don't know him, his music is uniquely gorgeous. And so, it's maybe not surprise. I mean, he didn't quite say the joke about, thanks for the comment, that plus 25 cents would get me a cup of coffee. But,
Hey, let's listen. Can we listen to something like a
please.
Is there on a video with this in this?
Yes. So if you click on that link, performance projects, and then Paul McCandless, you will find videos there.
Okay, is this also at the bottom?
Yeah, you got to go down a ways. I can't see what you're seeing right now because you're not sharing your screen, but yes, you have to go a little ways down.
Okay, I'll go
I
down.
promise you'll find it.
Well, there is Willow.
Yeah, that's one of them.
And then
But there are others.
There's Willow. Well, all I did was find Willow, but should we listen to Willow on that page? Yeah, I can show you the page, but I was just.
Let's see.
No, let's see. Here, I'll share the page, and then maybe you can.
I'm actually on it on my laptop too.
Oh.
Let's see.
Here's Willow. No, but it just goes to actually a. It's weird. It just goes to a like a paper or online.
Yeah, why is that? Where is that? I'm puzzled about where the.
You think it would be on your video page?
No, I was pretty sure it'd be here. I'm surprised. I don't know what would have happened to them, but they're on YouTube, so we can find them on YouTube.
Okay. I will go to YouTube. You of the tube. And how shall I say?
So if you search for Paul McCandless charged particles, all in one search, they'll come up. And you could put punch in there if you want. And then you'll get that. Paul McCandless charged particles punch.
Here we go. Okay.
Experience 12 weeks of the familiar freshness you love.
Sorry
Snuggle,
about that.
the comfort of home.
Pad right now, just
Oh
in
my
case
gosh.
you need to hear this. You know that
You know,
moment
I
when you
tried
feel a sneeze
to,
coming in absolute panic?
To get rid of those, and then they charged me twice for it, so I canceled it. Cool. Yeah. Nice.
So an interesting little tidbit about that is that at one point Paul was hunting around in his garage amongst his collection of junk and discovered a DAT tape of live recording of that material, that song in particular, but other stuff as well. After Premonition was released on Windham Hill, he did a tour that was peaked at the Montreal Jazz Festival, but they also played the Bottom Line in New York, and they played the China Club in Chicago, and Kimball's East in Emeryville, and a place that doesn't exist anymore in LA. And luckily, a spectacular quality recording was made in Emeryville outside of San Francisco. Oh. And he had this DAT tape. And when we listened to it, even my wife was knocked out by it. And so we said, okay, something's got to happen with this. Make a long story short, we are signing a contract this week with MIG Records. I don't know if you know MIG, Made in Germany is what MIG stands for. And they've got Randy Brecker records and various other Mike Stern records, other big deal folks in our little space. And they're gonna put it out. And Steve Rodby, the bass player on it, has been working his magic to make it sound even better than it sounded. And he just finished that up on Monday this week. So there's going to be, and you know, for the super fans of Paul McCandless, there will be a new release, and for the super fans of Lyle Mays, which of course there are many of, this is going to be you know, yet another. There, you know, Lyle was in some sense over-recorded with the Pat Metheny group, but under-recorded in other settings. And we found one, so you know, it's going to be really cool to get this out.
That's fantastic. You know, let's see, I interviewed Lyle's niece, his sister's daughter, and he was a mentor to her. She's a singer. Very good, Aubrey Johnson.
Aubrey and I are friends, actually. Aubrey has stayed at my house.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, I don't know if you did you see her last summer when she was on tour in California?
Yes, I did.
Yeah,
Very
so
good.
she was at my house days before you saw her.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah, I helped to set her up with that gig. That's a nice
good.
house venue. Yeah.
Yes, well, that tour only happened because I set her up at Portola Vineyards that we talked about earlier. That was a jazz series. So once they gave her a chunk of change to come out from New York, she then, I guess, reached out to you and to some other folks and did a West Coast tour.
Cool. Very cool. Well, this all sounds exciting, especially what's happening right now. I mean, you know, it's great when that stuff comes together, right? You know, and happens in real time. It's great.
Yeah, and there's, you know, hard to know what's going to happen tomorrow in the world, but at least we know there's some fun jazz coming along.
Yeah, that's great. I love finding those tapes. I have done that too. It's great. I found a live recording that was really nice in Japan because I've been to Japan a lot. And for 20 years I worked with this pianist, and he and I really were good together. He's kind of a little bit like a Keith type of player, you know. And so we had a Christmas concert over 2 days and a really nice DAT tape. And I put it out last year, you know, because it was good. It sounded really good, you know, and we were, you know, midstream our relationship, and it sounded really nice, you know.
Holiday music or?
A little bit, but mostly standards.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, sometimes you make that recording, you do the gig, you make the recording, you put it aside, you don't think about it, and then it takes a few years to come back freshly and say, well, actually, that sounds okay. Maybe we could do this.
Yeah, it's funny. Have you ever had those that just kind of hang out in the background and then kind of don't resurface? But they may.
I have countless, yes, countless. I mean, our baked potato record almost was going to be that. I mean, the baked potato record almost didn't happen. You may know that they have a little box you can check on the contract. You know, record the gig. And so I checked the box, and we show up for the gig, and I think it might have been even a Sunday night. And I said to the sound engineer, so, you know, we're going to record tonight, right? And he said, oh, yeah, that guy's not here. And I said, and you probably know that there's like the recording setup is this big board actually in a little closet out in the back, and the house mixing is not that, and so they kind of need another guy, and he wasn't going to come. So I said, well, I checked the box. Not that I had any great plans for this, but I just thought, okay, we could get a recording. So he said, all right, fine, I'll do both. And it was nice of him, but kind of thinking about doing house sound and running a 32-track multi-channel, it didn't seem promising. And then it took probably 9 months, literally 9 months, for me to get the hard drive. So I had to mail a hard drive down there, and now I don't know why. You would think you could just upload it to Box or Dropbox or something, but send me a hard drive. Okay, fine. So I sent them. And then sorry, we'll send it. So that shows up. And I thought, this doesn't sound that good, but I gave it to a guy who you might also know, Dan Fleisley. Dan is one of the premier bass players on the San Francisco scene. And he's also got a recording studio in his basement, and he's a wizard with Pro Tools. And so he took it and mixed a little bit of it, and I said, oh, okay, maybe. And so I sent it to Peter Erskine. Peter is a close friend and a mentor for me throughout my life. We met when I was like 14 and he was 19. And so he said, oh, put the record out. And so, okay, I'll try. And I sent it to Darby Christensen, who you probably know is the president of Summit Records. And Darby said, oh, we'll put this out. And so, great. That's okay, if you believe in it that much, we'll give it a try. So we got Bill Mikowski to write liner notes, and we actually set things up so that the CD of Mike Brecker's music would be released on the same day that Bill's biography of Brecker would be published. So he did a book you probably know called Ode to a Tenor.
Hey, I'm sorry. I gotta stop you. The sound is interrupted on YouTube, and here it is too, even in Zoom. So can you kind of look around on your sound? Maybe mute yourself, turn, then unmute yourself.
Is that any better?
No.
No. All right. I can try to get in on my computer. Hold on a sec.
Okay.
If that's any better.
We're working on it. All right, let's see. See if he sounds better on his computer. Hello? You have to unmute yourself. Yeah. I can't hear you at all. It might be because you're on the phone too. I don't know. Oh, there you are. Nope, there you gone.
Okay, that's weird. I don't know why the microphone is what we wanted to have happen on the computer is not working, the microphone. But does that sound okay now?
Not really. Let's see. Can you could try and hang up on your phone and then just try getting the sound on the computer?
Okay.
I see you. I don't hear you. Don't hear you. This is one of those technical issues. Technical stuff is good until it's not. Then it makes you want to go back to the beginning. Okay, we're going to try that again. Okay.
Let's try that. Is that any better?
Yes,
Good.
that sounds good. Okay. And Roland or Craig, let me know if that's still good, if that is working. So we I think the people missed that. I didn't want to interrupt you while you were talking, but I think people kind of lost, kind of the end result of what happened,
Yeah.
But he was talking about the baked potato live record, and just he finally got it after 9 months, and then let's see, I know Peter Erskine was in there, and
So Peter encouraged us to put it out,
yeah,
and Darby Christensen, who is the president of Summit Records, said he would put it out. And Bill Milkowski wrote liner notes for us that ended up being a long essay. That it's a 20-page booklet. And the booklet with the CD actually features pictures of Mike Brecker that no one had seen before, that Susan Brecker, Mike's widow, gave us from her personal collection. And some of the proceeds of the sale of the CD go to the Brecker Family Foundation to fight the type of cancer that killed Mike. And so we had, kind of all that nice stuff. And then the CD was released on the same day that Bill Milkowski's biography of Mike Brecker called Ode to a Tenor Titan was published. So that same Friday, our CD came out, his book came out. And since then, we've done a series of concerts where he's the opening act. He actually has given a little lecture about Mike before we have played the music.
nice.
And so but the funniest part of this was that just as we were kind of heading toward production of this, Brandy Brecker announced on his Facebook page, said, sorry, folks, it turns out I'm not going to be able to use this Facebook page anymore because Facebook is shutting me down. They have said that I'm impersonating a famous person named Randy Brecker. And so,
Yeah,
he
see,
said,
that's what I mean about technology. Okay, yeah.
yeah. So he said, I sent them my driver's license and my passport, and they said, yeah, you don't look like that. And so they're shutting him down. So I thought, I know somebody who works at Facebook. Maybe I can ask her if she could help. And so I asked her, and she wrote back and she said, oh, coincidentally, I work with the group of people who shut down people who are impersonating famous people. And within 2 hours, Randy's page was back up. And so I wrote him a note and I said, Randy, I just want to let you know, I think I might have gotten your Facebook page fixed. Is it fixed? And he wrote back and he said, oh, it is actually. Thank you so much. I'll tell you what, give me your home address and I'll mail you some of my CDs to thank you. So I said, well, it's very kind of you, but I already have all of your CDs, so I don't need those. But how about this? Could I send you one track that we recorded at the Baked Potato of your brother's music and just listen to it and tell me what you think? And honestly, I don't know what was in my head at the time, but I think I was partly still feeling like, somewhat insecure, like this was a dumb investment to put this out. And he wrote back the nicest note. The tune was African Skies, you might know, that he actually played with the Brecker brothers. And he said, I'm playing along with African Skies right now on my trumpet. Tell you what, send me all the tracks and I will see if I can write something for the back of your album. So long story short, he wrote a blurb that is on the booklet, that was so kind, and it's actually on the website too. It was on that first page of the website. And so then, this was completely charming. And a little while later, I said to him, what would you think about gigging with us? And he said, okay, I mean, if I can fit it in, sure. And so long story short, we headlined at the Scarborough Jazz Festival in Scarborough, England, which is a big deal. And then we did a series of other clubs and concerts. And Ronnie Scott's sold out 2 shows at Ronnie Scott's. And I'm sure you've done Ronnie Scott's. I had never done it. It was an amazing experience. I mean, that is such a historic room,
Yeah.
all red plush, packed with people screaming at the end. And, it's just a peak of my career to have done that. Thank you, Randy. So then, so I said, you want to do more? He said, sure. So we did a week in October in California. We did your local vibrato, and a couple nights at SF Jazz and Koowoomba and some others up here in the Bay Area. And then that led to the upcoming tour that I mentioned we're going to do this coming summer. So, it's a treat. And I don't know how well you know him, but he is also the sweetest guy. Like, I don't know, I didn't have an impression of him one way or the other, but really, really nice guy. and really interesting. I mean, he's 78, I think now, or maybe just turned 79, and it's like his memories of his whole life are way more vivid than my memories of my life, and so I can ask him endless questions, and he'll tell me endless stories of his life. And I'll just surprise you by saying that when I said, what like musically you've had so many experiences, what would be like one of the peaks that you remember just really being excited about? And he said, you know what, playing fourth trumpet in the Thad Jones Mel Lewis Big Band in 1969. That he was very young and he hadn't had a lot of experiences, but boy, that was it for him.
Oh, that's pretty cool. Yeah. Yeah, when I was in college, I was at Berkeley, 72 to 75. And so that was a great time in Boston. And, I don't know how I was I 20? I don't know, somewhere around there. And 79. No, I was older. 79. Oh, sorry, not 79, 72. So yeah, I was around 20. So, but the Brecker Brothers, I mean, that was a really hot time for the Brecker Brothers. That's why I knew that song. Um, you know, and Oregon and Weather Report and all of those amazing bands, and Boston had, all of this. Well, you were in Boston too, right?
Yeah, I was right
Yeah.
after you. I was there from 76 to 80.
Yeah. So, there was amazing blues there. And, we were coming out of the Woodstock period. So there was all of that great, amazing music, Motown. There was just a lot of amazing music. Plus, I was really into like Miles, and that style of jazz. Um, but so Michael Brecker, I'd seen both Michael and Randy over the years, many times here and there. Probably the last time I saw Randy was, I don't remember, might have been, I can't remember if it was during the pandemic, kind of a little later than the beginning of the pandemic, might have been. I was visiting a singer named Jay Clayton,
Mm-hmm.
and we went out to see um, Mark Copeland and Randy and Joey Barron. Yeah, it was really a great concert. So saw those guys, hung out with those guys, and yeah, I mean, and I also have the book, that book, because I couldn't stay away from that book. I mean, Michael Brecker's always been one of my favorites. Just his
Yep.
sound is so
Yeah.
amazing. Great.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, that's that's really good, really great. This is exciting. It's like a really full on, um, prestigious gigs for you and great gigs. I mean, really what we want to do is we want to play with great musicians in great situations, right? A lot.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's what you're
Yeah.
doing.
Yeah. And
That's
it's, and for better or worse, it does become a bit of an addiction because, when you do a concert, I don't have to tell you this, that when you do a concert and the audience is on their feet and they're screaming at the end of it, you kind of feel like, okay, this was, I would have done it just for the fun of playing, but now you realize, okay, this is actually connecting with people. So it's a treat. It's a privilege. I'm really grateful.
yeah, that's really great.
You
Um,
saw Jay Clayton probably like an hour north of New York. Is that where you went, where she was living at the time?
I saw her there when she was actually kind of fading. And but actually we hung out in New York too she shared an apartment with Sheila
Mm.
Jordan. And
Hmm.
so we were there and that's when we saw Randy Brecker and those guys.
Got it.
Yeah.
Yeah, because Jay actually came to hear Charged Particles with. She was very close to Paul McCandless, and so she
Yeah.
came to hear. She actually recorded on one of Paul's records. She was
Yeah.
the voice, and so she came to hear us. And I'm trying to remember the name of the place. I'm sure you know this place. Embarrassed that I'm forgetting. Like a
Uh,
barn kind of setting an hour north of the city, where
you
lots of
mean
people have played.
Are you talking about, are you talking about the place that's the hotel too? And it's kind of in
Oh, no, that's in Pennsylvania, you mean? That's the
a Delaware water gap?
yeah. No, yeah. I'm talking about like an hour north of New York City. Shoot, I'm not remembering the name of this place. But and the gentleman who ran it for a long time passed away a couple years ago, and his son is now running it.
I don't know. I
Yeah.
don't know that place.
Yeah. I'll try to figure it out before we're done.
Yeah. That may have been the place that had her memorial. I'm not sure.
I, I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah.
Yeah, if people haven't heard Jay, they should definitely hear her. She was a special singer.
She was special. She was a special human, special singer, incredible history. Yeah. Yeah, it was an honor to be her friend. Yeah. Really
And
nice.
when you were in Boston, you must have been going to the Jazz Workshop and Paul's Mall and the 1369 Club and all those clubs that I think none of them exist anymore. That I used to go to as well, and historic recordings made in those places. Little tiny rooms with huge stars in them.
Yeah, amazing. I remember two in my memory. There's two that I really remember from there is yeah, at the Jazz Workshop. It was actually the first concert that I went to on my own. My dad was a sax player, but the Modern Jazz Quartet was playing, and my sister took me. We sat right in the front row, and I was so wildly impressed, the music quality, and they looked beautiful, and they respected each other, and it was just that really actually changed my life a lot. And later, when I was in college, I went to see Miles at the at Paul's Mall, and that was one of those nights. He turned his back on the audience and then he left. Anyway, but those were two memories that I had of those places. Was the 1369, was that the little club down the street from Berkeley?
I think it was in Somerville.
Oh,
And like
okay.
I think it was maybe across the street from Riles. So Riles and 1369 were over there.
It was, well, Riles, yeah, Riles, was it Riles in Cambridge or was it Somerville? I mean, they're basically the same thing.
Yeah, no, it was in Somerville.
Yeah, I don't know if I went. I've definitely hung out at Riles. I'm not sure if I went to the 1369. I don't know.
Yeah, the so I just looked it up here, and there's the sad article. The 1369 Jazz Club closes. That was 1988, and they have it listed here as being in Cambridge, Inman Square.
Yeah, yeah.
So maybe that was halfway between.
But I mean, they were right next to each other.
Yeah.
What is Craig says, Rando Boston Memory, Daddy's Junkie Music.
No, I don't know
Us,
that one.
us Montana kids used to buy our sound gig there in the 90s.
Ah,
Maybe
okay.
they started after we left or something.
So when you were a Berkeley student, were like 100% of your performances were at the school, or did you get out into town and play as well in clubs?
I was playing at that time. I'd always been a singer, but they didn't have voice at the time at Berkeley, so I was playing flute. But
Oh,
I had a band that included John Robinson.
hmm, the drummer.
Yeah, yeah,
Wow.
and so we worked, but we worked all kinds of music, right? Funk and everything because that was what was happening. So yeah, we
Mhm.
worked a lot around town. Our group was called Timbre.
Hmm.
Timbre. I have
Maybe I should thank you for graduating because you made room for my band to play.
a. Okay, your thanks is acknowledged. Yeah, those were pretty cool days. When I go back to Boston, I kind of I'm from Boston too, but after college I left. I came out here, and but when I go back there, I really get returned to the college state of mind. It's really amazing. It's just like I'm in college again. It's so cool, really cool.
Yeah, I was there 2 weeks ago, and I was looking forward to going back to Bartley's Burgers. You probably never knew that place, but it was a hamburger place in Harvard Square. And I was all worked up, and my person who I went on the trip with me, I said, we're gonna go have the best hamburger of our lives. And let's put it this way, it was not the best hamburger of our lives. So we were different people years ago, I would say.
That's funny. Hey, let's talk about your adventure into creating, curating, creating festivals and whatever. Because you've had several, what looks like really good experiences that are continuing. And I know that side of it too, because I'm a curator as well, but not, I think your events that you are creating and have created have a little more notoriety than mine, but still, I'm still
Maybe
doing
not.
it.
Yeah, it's actually the really wonderful collaboration that I've had now for about 15 years is with a guy named Len Lehman, who owns and runs Portola Vineyards in Portola Valley, California, and that also came about in the funniest way. That if you think, like, students every so often say to me, what do I need to do to make opportunities happen? And I said, just live your life. Opportunities will come to you. In this case, when my wife and I moved to Stanford and bought a house, I should say Stanford bought a house. Mostly the university. Professors could never afford to buy property, so the university buys the house and you live in it and pay for a little bit of it. And this particular house had a vineyard on it, and the people who sold it to us were very proud of the vineyard. We got some vines growing here, and you'll really enjoy this. Here's a bottle of the wine. We hope you enjoy many more from our vineyard. So I had a friend who lived a few blocks away who was a real wine expert, and I said, would you be willing to test this wine and tell me if it's any good? Because I'm absolutely not a wine expert. So he said, yeah, sure, come over. We'll have some dinner. We'll open the bottle. We'll test it out. So we test it out. He takes a sip of it and he says, wow, that is some of the worst wine I have ever tasted. And so we thought, okay. So we will not become winemakers. We will let these vines go. But we did know that this vineyard was not far away, and we thought, well, maybe they would, somehow like to grow grapes there. It has a nice hill, it had good sun exposure. So I contacted them, and he came over, and he looked at the vineyard and kind of laughed, and he said, yeah, this would not be of interest to us. This is tiny. It's too far from us. It's not of interest. But tell me about yourself. So we get into a conversation, and it turns out that he is a typical retired tech guy who made a lot of money in tech and was doing wine because he loves it, but also turns out he loves jazz. And once he knew that I was into jazz, he said, well, I've always wanted to have a concert series. Maybe you could help me put that together. So long story short, 15 years later, every summer, 5 or 6 concerts on Sundays throughout the summer. Every concert is sold out within about 2 weeks of the tickets going on sale. It doesn't matter who it is.
Wow.
The waiting list is usually 400 to 500 people for every concert.
Wow.
It's unbelievable success. And so that for me, the treat is I'm like his filter. So I propose artists, and he makes the final decision about who he wants to have. And so I will tell you, you're on the list, actually.
I love that. Thank you.
Yeah, so he works his way down the list. But Aubrey, I put her on, and to my surprise, normally some people are on the list for 3 or 4 years at least before he gravitates to the person. It's almost like he's got to hear them multiple times before he warms up. But the other way of looking at it is that there are like too many great people on the list kind of stacked up. And so he picked Aubrey immediately and said, I'll take her. But it's really been a spotlight mostly on Bay Area talent so far. And, very few people from outside the Bay Area, but she's an example of somebody who, he was willing to bring in. And so Randy is going to do one of those gigs with us this summer, and Len is jumping out of his skin at the idea that Randy Brecker would be on his stage. But as there's great talent in the Bay Area, and a lot of the people who have done the series, not surprisingly, recontact me and say, it was like 7 years ago we were there. Could we come back? And I said, yes, absolutely. I will be happy to nominate you as soon as I run out of other people to nominate first. And the list goes on and on. So that's been a fun thing, and I really feel like, I mean, I don't want to go into too much detail, but the gigs pay very well. They pay the way gigs should pay for people,
Yeah.
and so I think it's always a treat for people to feel appreciated and to have an audience that goes bananas. It's one of these outdoor summer sit on the grass and drink wine and eat your picnic kind of evenings.
Love that.
So yeah,
so good,
hopefully
isn't it?
not too long from now you will get to experience that if you're willing to make the trip.
Thank you. That's very kind of you. Yeah, I try and, I look for gigs, but I also try and just open my open my arms and just say, I'm just having fun being where I'm being and having relationships, and then, that hopefully comes back and whatever,
Yeah.
I like that way of living,
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I think if you do good stuff with passion, that eventually people notice, and
Yeah.
you get, somehow you'll fit into things. That's most of the stories of opportunities for me, was, doing the right thing at the time when somebody needed that and I was available.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I love it. Now, there was something else that you did too, or that stopped, or can't
Well, there have
remember.
been some other series that, another winery that had a concert series that I helped them to book over time. But those are not functioning anymore. They were kind of the opposite. They were hard to build up, and I think I really can't explain why Portola Vineyards has such a success, that I think if anybody could carbon copy, they would want to elsewhere. But I think what you need is like a little town like Portola Valley that has a fair amount of money and is actually kind of a little bit isolated. It's just far enough away that it's an effort to get to other things. And then if there's something local that you find out is good and that people come to hear it and then go tell their friends, oh, we heard this fun concert on Sunday. And I do think what Len puts on is probably the highest level art that happens in the town. I mean, there's other music, there are other things that happen, but he's able and willing to spend the money that it takes to bring people in. I'll just tell you though that one person for some reason he's obsessed with is Anat Cohen. He really would love to get Anat, and he can't afford her. I've told him, you have to wait till she's not a superstar anymore, and then you can afford her. But
Which
so far,
might take a while.
yeah, exactly. And we keep getting prices, and the prices keep still being way up there. So
Yeah, that's pretty interesting. Let's see. So, let's see. Well, I'm going to just branch out a little bit. Well, no, I don't really want to. I am interested in your workload. Sometimes I ask people how their workload is, what's a kind of a typical day. And I am interested because you have so many deep things that you're doing. Is there a typical day or a typical week that you have, or?
well, I can tell you that this week is a bizarre one. And again, this is all conditioned on the fact that I'm on sabbatical, so I don't have the formal obligations at Stanford that I would normally have. But this week on Monday, I was up at 6 and into Zooms mostly with collaborators and writing stuff, because I do lots of research. And so we're kind of moving forward data collection and statistical analysis and writing papers, just like any scientist does. And then on Tuesday morning, I had kind of a typical day till I flew to Tucson. And I flew to Tucson Tuesday night because on Wednesday, Wednesday was a classic me day. So I spent the day at the University of Arizona, meeting with faculty and meeting with students and giving a talk about my research. And then Wednesday night, I went to the Fox Theater downtown Tucson to hear Kurt Elling with Peter Erskine and Joey Calderazzo, and just an amazing concert, one of the greatest. I'm getting harder to please in my elderly years, but I just loved every note of it. So the Yellow Jackets played the opening set, And I've heard a lot of them over the years. And even I was getting a little tired of hearing the same stuff from them, but this was great. They were really fresh. And then the second half was Kurt doing the music of Weather Report. And I don't know if you know about that project.
Is this the small group or the large?
It's
Okay.
small. So it's just, and I'm gonna have to look up the name of the guitar player, who I don't know, who's actually quite terrific. Let's see if I can get this.
I mean, I missed him in New York, but he was with the big band there. But
Okay.
I thought it was the music of Weather Report with the big band too.
Not aware of that. But so Mike Moreno is the guitar player. I don't know if you know him. I hadn't known him before. Played beautifully. And Esiet Okan Esiet, who, splits his time between New York and San Francisco and is married to Sylvia Cuenca, the drummer, was the bass player. And I guess Esiet has worked a lot with Kurt over the years. But I don't think Peter has worked with Kurt much at all. And to do, I went because I was going to be there anyway. And Peter's a friend, and I thought, okay, but I support, I would go to this concert. But boy, I was knocked out that Kurt wrote such fabulous lyrics to a wide array of different kinds of Weather Report tunes and delivered them so beautifully. And it turns out that that group, that quintet had done a handful of these concerts before without Peter. And this was Peter's first one stepping into the drum chair. So to all your listeners, I highly recommend this. And they're doing 2 of these near you, actually. One of them that will be live streamed, so anybody can see it if they pay the $12 or whatever it is. So it's I really recommend it. It's just, and Kurt obviously is such a special voice, but I just really hadn't known him as a person, as an artist, nearly as much as I did by the end of that night, and I just was really knocked out.
Yeah.
So that was my Wednesday. Thursday I flew home and had work stuff, and today I did a little bit of work, but then I drove up here so I could talk to you, and I'll do my concert tonight.
Okay, that's pretty full. And
Yeah.
but it sounds like you're doing what you want to do, which is, really good.
Yeah, it is a little. I will confess to you, it's. I probably need some therapy for this. But when I open up my email and I have 100 emails sitting there to answer, the ones that I answer first are the music ones, not the science ones, for whatever reason. And I think that's it.
That tells the tale. We should hear another song.
Okay, I would recommend. Let's check out the other band, the Lunar Octet. So if you're in YouTube, go ahead and type Lunar Octet, and we'll pick something to hear, so you can hear some large ensemble Latin jazz.
Okay, let's see. So, Lunar
LUNAROCTET.
Octet.
Yeah.
Right? Okay. Am I in the right spot?
You are in the right spot. So let's see. Let's go down. You could do See Samba Diabolico's at the top of your screen now.
This one?
There you go.
Nice. The Lunar Octet. Wait, actually, now I'm gonna. That's cute. I
Were you singing along?
was.
I like that. That was a good addition. We should have had you on the record.
I was gonna say, I never, and I have the whole here of, recording with people, at a distance, and I haven't done that yet. I just haven't gotten into that, and I would like to. It's, it's such a cool, it's a cool thing to do. That's what you guys did, right? You were in different.
No, that believe it or not, I will allow the secret to come out.
Okay.
That recording was made in a studio in Ann Arbor, Michigan, in the middle of the winter when everybody was freezing. And what you just saw was the COVID video overdub of it. So the original track was the way you would normally make a record, and we essentially played along with it, which lots of people do. And if you want to see, I'm sorry, maybe I shouldn't say this, but I admire Aubrey has a truly amazing set of videos that she did that way also. If you watch them, you're absolutely convinced that you're watching them play what you're hearing until you realize there are no microphones in the room and these instruments sound superb. And then you realize, oh, wait a second, they have memorized everything and they are doing it, they're playing along with it. And that's what we were forced to do during COVID. And so we did.
Yeah, COVID was interesting for a number of reasons, just creating stuff that you never created before, never would have even kind of thought about, right?
Yeah.
Actually, that's when I started this. March 2020, started this. And now you're the 607th person.
Yeah. Well, thank you for continuing it, because it's been great entertainment and a great way for people to learn about what's happening. And I have enjoyed a lot of these. So maybe not all 600 of them, but a lot of them.
For a while I thought that I was going to go back and listen to each one and pick out like the aha moments, maybe just write them down for myself or make a book or something. That was like, no, that wasn't real. That was not realistic at all. So I don't know. It's kind of it's one of those things, how you collect things at your house to look at, or you make lists of things to do. That's just like one of those list things.
Well, I'll tell you. Here's my idea. If you want to have that happen, you need to develop a relationship with USC or one of the jazz programs nearby, and some undergrad can do an internship with you, and then you can assign them to listen to 30 of them and find the aha moments for you.
Okay. But how are they going to know my aha moments?
You have to teach them.
Yeah. Yep. So this music that we've been listening to today has been what I would call, genres are kind of somewhat stupid, because they just don't cover a lot. But would you say that you have experimented in other genres of jazz as well?
Yeah, so we would have to kind of figure out what this genre is. But so I certainly, nobody can survive without playing standards. And so as a player, for me, that's where jazz started. And although I should, just to be fair, let me kind of explain it this way, that I was a classical percussionist to begin with. That's what Interlochen taught. And so when I went to summers as a kid there in junior high school and high school, and eventually a little bit of college, I was playing in a symphony orchestra, I was playing in a concert band, I was playing in a percussion ensemble and taking private lessons. And in 1972, when I was there was a breakthrough, because jazz had not been recognized as anything worthy of recognition until then. And I don't actually know the story of who exactly convinced the powers that be that it was worth, bringing jazz in. And I think really the only reason it happened was because the Stan Kenton orchestra was called the Stan Kenton Orchestra, and then it sounded like what they knew. And of course, that music at that time was very orchestrated and very ensemble rich, with soloists, of course, but a little bit more of a compositional emphasis than maybe some of the other big bands. And I happened to be there. I was a kid. And that happened to be Peter Erskine's first gig with that band. And so I just was electrified by hearing that. And to my dad's credit, he said, "Oh, this kid likes jazz. Let's see. Why don't I?" So he went to a record store and to buy some records for me, and said to the guy at the record store, what should I give my son? He heard Stan Kenton, he liked it. So he bought a Buddy Rich record, and he bought an Oregon record, and maybe something else. And so I gravitated toward that kind of music, and what I mean by that is that was they were not playing standards, they were playing arrangements, they were playing compositions, and only later did I discover the standard repertoire. And obviously you just can't gig without being able to do that, knowing all that. And so that tonight's gig, for example, is going to be a gig of standards. And so that certainly that's a genre of jazz. And then there's the big band thing, which, as you know, drummers love because we're so featured and so prominent in the big band thing. And I've never played hand percussion. I've never played congas or timbales or any of the bongos. Anything that those guys do has always been kind of outside of my repertoire. But in general, I think it's fair to say that I've gravitated toward intricately composed stuff that once the audience hears it, they realize that somebody worked hard to give them a special experience. So there's kind of that, there's that version of jazz. These guys created something new for me that they worked hard to put together and was hard to perform, versus, oh, I recognize that melody, that's so charming. Both are good experiences.
Yeah. I can dig it. Yeah, I mean, so many people do standards. God, the other night I was at the Baked Potato actually, and I was listening to my friend, the drummer Jason Harnell. Are you familiar with him?
I don't know, Jason. No.
Very unusual, incredibly musical jazz player, and he's done so many, varied things. Anyway, he was playing with Adam Benjamin, a pianist who's very out, and a guitarist named Storm something. And I was totally surprised when I came in. I was accompanying some Japanese friends of mine, and the woman is a B3 player, and she was thinking it was going to be like an organ gig because there was no bass player, which it was not an organ gig, it was something else. I came in and I was like, oh my God. It was, the immediate hit was great. Just created this beautiful creative space. They were playing standards, but they were taking them so far beyond, it was really a beautiful thing. And, of course, some of my favorite Keith stuff is him playing standards. So the standards, it's really great. And as a singer who plays a lot of different material, including originals, standards are really a fun and a breath of fresh air if the players, which, the people I play with they're really competent and, unafraid, to create. And so, but the standards are such a basic part of what we do and where we're coming from. It's great. I have been thinking about lately, I've been thinking about what I want my shows to consist of. And of course, every show is a little different, but I want to bring certain things to the shows, and I do like varied material. So, but it's nice as an artist, it's nice to have some kind of, especially a vocal artist, because we're using words. So, it's nice to have some kind of solid inner message coming through, But I've been thinking a lot about that lately.
Yeah, I'm with you because when we program, what we're striving for is to be like a movie, to take people on an adventure that starts in some place and it progresses to maybe a peak in the middle, and then it resolves in some nice way. And the some of the most gratifying moments are when audience members come up after the show and they said, "Oh, I just so love that because you did this thing where you kind of took us places and you told us stories and I like, oh, it's work. At least it worked for that person and the other three who said that, So it's good. I'll tell you this. I don't know if you know Dime a Dozen. Dime a Dozen is a website that is basically a live concert sharing website. So people who record live performances and then want to share them with other people. And one of our concerts with Randy got picked up and put there. And there's no cost to getting in. And the basic logic is that once you download stuff, you need to share it with others. So it's a kind of constant exchange. And what's kind of humorous is that when our show at SF Jazz got put up there, each track is a song, and one of the tracks was, talking, and that was me talking to the audience. And so the guy puts in parentheses long, and and I thought, okay, so he would like to have heard more music, less of me. But I feel like the way we make the music connect to the audience is to give them a backstory to it, to have them understand each song. And I'm sure you do that. And that's, for instrumental music, I just feel like that's the showbiz way to do it. And it seems to work, but it's got to fit together, right? It's got to be a progressive story that makes sense across the show.
Yeah, I keep talking about Anthony Wilson because first of all, he's one of my favorite guitar players, but also in the last 15 years, he started writing material that was a little bit like Robert Johnson. And his father was Gerald Wilson, and he was from Mississippi. So Anthony started going back to Mississippi to dig up family roots. And he's a photographer as well, so he's been, and writing music. And he started to sing, which was unusual for him. And so over the years, it's just gotten really incredible. And I saw him last year at Sam First, which is a small club, and it was a quartet, no, quintet, yeah, him and piano and a violinist. And anyway, each song was like a little movie. It was incredible. He does talk in between, and he'll tell the stories, and he's a very humble guy. So it's personal. It's real personal. But I mean, to me, each song was like a little movie. It was amazing. And that's a really nice thing to talk about and work on. There's so much to work on, isn't there? But if you take a song and you really live with it and work on it and get it into a real particular story, that you can offer, yeah, I mean, I think that's very valuable, on many levels.
Well, one way to think about what you're saying is that, when we play original music for the first time, which all of us thrive on because, freshness and new things are fun, where some part of our brain is focused on what we're playing, and then the other part of our brain is focused on how we're playing it. So we're looking at the chart and trying to be faithful and follow the changes as we need to. But with standards, after you played them for decades, you're not wondering anymore what you're going to play. It's all about how you're going to play it. And that, to me, that allows for the creativity on that side of things. And if I don't know what your experiences is. I'd be interested to hear about, working with people who you work with, whether they kind of fall into habits. But my guys, we strive not to do that. To, like, every time through a tune, everybody's trying to come up with something they've never done on it before. And sometimes it works, and sometimes it stumbles a little bit. But it seems more fun.
I like that. I mean, I have a lot of opinions about players, because I've been on all kinds of gigs with all kinds of players. Um, and I really like space, in the music, and definitely relationships within the band, musical relationships, um, and possibilities. And yeah, like I just played a duo with one of my favorite players down here, a guy named Gary Fukushima, who tends not to play on one. And I mean, he can, but he knows I don't really like that.
Okay. Okay.
So, yeah, so we have a lot of fun. You know,
Ah,
it's just, it's great, very creative, fun. You never know what's happening. And, you know, I mean, people really are impressed with him playing in that situation because he's playing who he really is and it sounds great and it's real creative. So that's,
nice to have a partner like that. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, I really like that.
So let's talk about that playing on one thing. So is that something that you feel comfortable asking people to do, or do you just gravitate toward the people who naturally handle that the way you like?
Yeah, well, it kind of, that's, kind of a rabbit hole question because as there are players who play on one, not maybe not all the time. I don't like really, people who are very structured who just play on one. I tend not to play with them. Um, but I don't mind if somebody has a lot of sensitivity and is more of a downbeat player. Because usually, if they have a lot of sensitivity, they're moving around. I have asked people I've played a lot of duos, and I have asked people not to play the walking bass line.
Hmm.
That's annoying to me.
Hmm.
I mean, I don't mind occasionally, but I don't want to be like structured in there, and I don't want them to be structured in there. It really limits the freedom, right?
Hmm.
And so, but then there's Gary, like Gary was saying to me the other night, he said, I remember the first time I realized that you were okay with how I played.
About time.
Yeah, yeah. So, I also like guitar, singing with guitar too, very much so. So, and guitar is kind of, that also can be a non-downbeat kind of an instrument, with a lot of space. Um, and then there's some players who are really beautiful with the downbeat. I mean, that's their musicianship is so high that it's okay, you
Yeah.
know. Uh, my dad he was kind of, the old school of the union player. And what this one time he thought he'd impress me. He took a ballad that I wrote that was a very, da dee boom bum. It was very like lots of space and sensitive, And he thought he'd impress me, so he wrote an arrangement for the big band that he was working with, and it was "to-ding, to-ding, doo-da-doo-da-doo-da." And I was like, yeah, okay, thanks, Dad. I appreciated, the sentiment, but
Yeah.
yeah. So,
Yeah, well, it just shows every song can be done in many different styles, right? I mean, you could do that as a samba, you could do it as a the merengue, that so, but it was born in a particular way, I guess.
yeah. But yeah, and I think you mentioned this earlier, I think it was you. Anyway, the older I get, the more observant I am about how, where I want to go, what I don't want to do, what I do want to do, all the, the things, the people you want to play with, or the situations you want to get into. And also kind of opening up to the universe's energy, you know. And uh, so that's yeah, that's part of it too. The older I get, the more I go on. It's like I'm doing less gigs than I did when I was younger, but the gigs that I'm doing are fun, you know, and they're artistic, and you know, they give me a lot, you know. So,
Yeah, and it's interesting that the I think maybe between the lines of what you're saying, I'm hearing an experience that I've had also, which is that I don't know that we are fully choosing what we do musically, because when we do things on gigs that audiences really react to, they without meaning to, they encourage us to do more of that. And I think that doesn't go unnoticed. And so, for future gigs, like, people love that tune. And I after like 5 or 6 playings of a new thing, when the audience reacts most strongly to that, I'm amazed every time. Wow, they really love this. And then after the 6th time, of course they really love it, because everybody really loves it. So, you get a little bit trapped into that. For me, the story that I remember as a kid being, kind of discouraged about was, I was a super Pat Metheny fan for a while. So I would go hear Pat multiple gigs in a row. I was not exactly a deadhead, but I was on the verge of that. And so he came to Detroit, and he's playing for 3,000 people, and he says, we're so happy to be here in Detroit tonight, and we've planned an extra special long concert for you with some music nobody's heard before. And like, you feel like, oh wow, this is cool. And so the next night I go to Cleveland, and he says, we're really excited to be in Cleveland, and we've set up an extra long set with music nobody's ever heard before. Uh, and you kind of realize, I thought, like, somehow it felt duplicitous at first, but then you realize that, when you say that and it really does make the crowd feel special, it's not fair to Cleveland not to give them that experience. And so, you kind of have to do that for people. And you get into telling the same stories night after night, and yet every night it goes over. So, but yeah, I want to go back to something you said earlier. I don't want to lose this, that you said, that somebody said, it was the first time I really realized you liked my playing. And I think that's worth taking a breath on, because we so often, like the guys who I work with a lot, they could say to me, well, of course, I like playing with you, because if I didn't, I would turn down the gigs. I'm here, aren't I? So obviously that shows you that I like the music. But there's one guy in particular who I work with, who after every gig, he thanks me. He goes on in great detail about the high points of the performance and stuff of that sort. And at some point, I was sort of feeling like, Greg, you don't need to do this. Like, I get it. But then I turned the corner, and now I love listening to his review of every concert. And I think we could all do that more, right? We could all tell our colleagues how much we like what they do. And let's face it, everybody's insecure. Everybody hates listening to recordings of themselves. And wouldn't it be nice if we make a business of celebrating each other, like, constantly? That feels good to me. So I thought I liked, that theme coming through in what you were saying.
yeah, I agree with you. I mean, and thinking about that concert, it was a shared concert. Gary and I had a half hour, and then my friends Cheryl and Phil and Leo had a half hour, and it was. I definitely told them what I thought of what they were doing. It was beautiful, beautiful playing. And, when the bass player came up and said, wow, you're a really good singer, that made me feel good, because actually that night I felt like my singing wasn't that great. And so when he said that, it kind of went, it's okay,
Yeah.
it was fine. And,
Yeah.
Not that you want to be painfully like aware of everything you're doing right or wrong, but it's just, you're right. It's just it stays with you, it feeds you, and yeah, you want some acknowledgement for what you're doing, of course.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And obviously, in the sense that when somebody says you sounded great and you thought you sounded awful, or at least you thought you sounded off, I feel like the reality is that when I feel that way, or maybe when you felt that way that night, what it really was about was not so much what we sounded like, because we mostly sound the same every night. It was more what it felt like to play it. and
Yeah.
we're the only people who know what it felt like to play it, and
Yeah.
that and yet the range from a crappy night of ours to a good night of ours it's pretty narrow, whereas
Yeah.
it can feel different. So
Yeah.
good to be reminded of that
Yeah.
how hard it felt doesn't necessarily mean how good it sounded.
And sometimes when you feel great, it didn't sound that great.
Yeah.
I mean, it can all happen, right? Oh my God.
Yeah.
Yeah, my friend Roland said, by the way, he said, I love what Hans Greiner did with Giant Steps. Hans Greiner. That's pretty funny, right?
Absolutely.
Well, it's been 2 hours, John. And I want to thank you so much for being here. It was really fun to get to know you and to talk about all this stuff, to hear your music, and your wild success in your life. It sounds like you are, a satisfied, happy person with your life, and you're doing really well. And that's really nice to hear.
Well, Cathy, thank you. I'm very grateful to you for what you're doing for the music, all 600, et cetera, of these. But also, just thank you for including me. It's an honor to be a part of the legacy that you're creating here, of the art form that we're so committed to. And yeah, you're absolutely right. Like, I'm at a place in my life where I can look back and say, wow, I am so grateful and grateful that, another day happens and I can enjoy more of it. And however long it lasts, it lasts. I'm making the best of it. And I hope everybody feels that way.
Are you coming to Los Angeles soon?
Not soon. The next one is Vibrato with Randy at the end of July. And I'll send you a note. Maybe you'll be able to come join us.
Please do. I think July I'll be here, and so I would love to come.
Yeah,
Send me a note sooner rather than later, so I don't schedule anything that day.
Okay, it's not on their calendar, but I'll send it to you this afternoon. And but folks can look. It will be on the Charged Particles website, so people who see this conversation and are interested, they can see that schedule on the Charged Particles website. And I hope people come to see us.
Roland, maybe you and I can go together, okay? And I just wanted to let you know, and you might know, do you know Carrie Politzer?
Yes, sure.
She's going to be on Monday.
Oh, great. Okay.
Yeah, so she's a pianist from San Francisco, and next Friday there's a jazz Filipino singer from LA named Charmaine Clamore that I'm going to be interviewing. And for those of you in LA, for those of you who can wake up early, tomorrow morning, I'm doing a gig with Armando Campion and Joe Gaeta. It's going to be really fun in Santa Monica, 9 to 12 at Jinky's breakfast place, and it's going to be great. So if you need something good and you're in the area and you want to come over to Jinky's, come over, because it's gonna be a really nice experience.
That's
And
great.
on that note, I don't think you're coming, John, because you're a little far.
I am not.
Okay. All right. Well, John, have a great weekend, and thank you again for being on. It's been a real pleasure.
Thank you, Cathy. I look forward to hosting you at Portola Vineyard someday.
Me too. Thank you.
All right.